Hi, everybody. Welcome to another week of Wrestling with Wrestling. For the moment, I am flying solo. I'm not sure where Doc is. I suspect he may have overslept again, but I'm not positive. But I sent him a note just telling him to jump on in whenever he arrives. So hopefully he'll be joining us momentarily. Until then, I will do my best to soldier on, to scratch out a decent show all by myself. We have a lot to talk about this week. The next WWE pay-per-view or special event or whatever you want to call it has snuck up on us. It's this coming Sunday. It's WWE Payback, and unlike how it looked like it was going to be a few weeks ago, it's actually turned into a fairly decent, kind of a fresh-seeming card. Doc and I talked last week about how really until the Bryan injury was announced, and it was announced that he wasn't going to be wrestling on the show, Payback really was feeling very familiar. It felt a lot like just a slate of Extreme Rules rematches, and now it feels very fresh and very new. A lot of matches have been made in the last few weeks, and a few changes have been made to the existing matches, so it seems it's not quite as much of a lazy rebooking of the previous show, which is nice. So last night was the go-home episode of Raw for the pay-per-view, or the special event, and I'm actually, I'll level with you guys. I wouldn't necessarily say that I have been phoning in this show, but I have been been into the habit of watching Raw and then just sort of going from memory as Doc and I talk about it, and I rely on recaps from other websites, from wrestling websites, to sort of jog my memory or to fill in the gaps as we're talking. But this week, and for the forthcoming episodes, I am making an effort. I'm making an effort with Wrestling, and I've actually written my own recap of the show. I'll be going from my own notes, and I probably couldn't have mentioned anything, because I bet you guys didn't even notice, because that's how the high quality, even when I half-ass something, it's just that good. So you didn't even notice. But anyway, I'll be going from my own notes, and as usual, I watched the Hulu version, the abbreviated, edited 90-minute Hulu version of Raw, not the full 3 hours, including commercials, Raw. So when there have been parts of the live show that were cut out from the Hulu version, I did go back and look it up, and I will just note the segments that were left out of the Hulu version that I can't comment on personally because I didn't actually see it. But if Doc were here, and when Doc comes in, hopefully he does watch the full 3 hour version, and he will be able to comment on the parts that I missed because I only watched the Hulu version. Because I cut the cord. I don't watch it on cable anymore. I cut the cord. I'm a Hulu, Netflix, Amazon type of TV watcher. I'm one of those assholes. So anyway, let's get started. Last night's episode of Monday Night Raw. They were live from the University of Tennessee, and the show opened with Stephanie McMahon and Triple H coming to the ring. It was sort of a summary of what was going to happen on the show. Steph came out and reminded everybody that Daniel Bryan was supposed to come out and surrender the title later tonight. The Bryan angle has sort of been focused on Steph, while Triple H has split off and has been focusing his efforts on the bit with the Shield. And during this promo, there's a handoff where Steph talks a little bit about Bryan and having him surrender the title. She mentions that Bryan, she's confident that Bryan is going to relinquish the title tonight because he knows not that it's best for business, but that it's best for the people. It's best for the fans, because Bryan knows that the fans who cheer for him want him to be a fighting champion, and he just can't be that fighting champion because Steph says Bryan's body is just a B+. He just has a B+ body, and he can't take the strain, and he can't be a fighting champion. So she's confident he's going to give up the title when he comes out later tonight. Then she hands it off to Triple H, who takes a few cheap shots at Bryan, and then turns it into a promo about the Evolution match versus the Shield at Payback. He says that, you know, there are some wrestlers who are like Daniel Bryan, who can't take it, who can't adapt, who are just flashes in the pan. But then there are the truly great wrestlers who last because they can adapt, and that is evolution. And you can't stop evolution. Triple H says. It's nice to see such a visible television figure taking such a regular stand on a weekly basis for science and against creationism. You know, every week when you tune into Monday Night Raw, you hear emphatically, proudly, confidently, it is asserted that you can't stop evolution, that evolution is undeniable. So anyway, he announces that later tonight there will be a contract signing, a good old-fashioned contract signing, which I'm sure will be uneventful, for the six-man match, which I imagine I will be the main event of Payback, the Shield versus Evolution six-man tag at Payback, and it will be an elimination match. It has now been announced as a no-holds-barred six-man elimination match at Payback. Not a bad promo from these guys, but as I often wonder with these opening promos, there's very little accomplished here. In fact, the only thing that they accomplished during this promo segment happens right after the bit I just described, when Steph calls out Brad Maddox, the general manager of Raw, in case you've forgotten, and she and Triple H chew Brad Maddox out for allowing the Shield to come to the ring last week for last week's match between Batista and Seth Rollins, which Triple H had tried to stack the deck on against Seth by having Triple H come out as the ring announcer and Batista or Orton come out as the timekeeper, and then of course that is thwarted. That was thwarted when the Shield, the other two members of the Shield, came out as guest commentators. That was Brad Maddox's fault. He's the one who let them come down. So for that, for his insubordination and his disobeying of the orders and defying the wishes of Steph and Triple H, Brad Maddox is attacked by Kane. Kane comes down and chokeslams him and tombstones him, and then he's fired. Stephanie fires him. And that's really the only minuscule angle development of the segment. They could have just had Triple H and Stephanie fire Brad Maddox just for the start, but they cut a little bit of a promo beforehand. And just, I don't know. I mean, it wasn't bad, but it's just, that's 5 or 10 minutes that could have been devoted to getting another member of the roster over, or having a wrestling match, or giving the matches that they did have on the show a bit more time. Not a huge complaint, but just something that occurred to me, that there was a lot of airtime spent to accomplish very, very little. We do have our first match next, and it was Cesaro versus Rob Van Dam. And speaking about the Payback card, a few weeks ago it looked like this was going to be one of the matches on Payback. It looked like they were building to RVD versus Cesaro on the Payback show, and now it looks like that we get this match on Raw instead. It goes from a pay-per-view match to a Raw match, and it's actually not that bad of a thing, because as I mentioned before, it kind of freshens up that Payback card, because Cesaro and RVD were against each other along with Jack Swagger in a three-way on the previous show, so now they both have fresh matches for the upcoming show, which is fine with me. Cesaro versus RVD. RVD will be challenging Wade Barrett for the Intercontinental title at Payback. He won the Beat the Clock challenge last week, and Cesaro will be challenging Sheamus for the U.S. title at Payback. And before the match starts, Wade Barrett, the Intercontinental Champion, comes out, and Wade has some bad news. First, he has some bad news for the audience, as usual. He says that even though Memorial Day is the beginning of summer, we're all going to find when we get our bathing suits out and put them on that our stomachs will hang over the waistband, so it will ruin our summer for us. And also, the bad news for Rob Van Dam is when he gets in the ring with Wade Barrett, he will find out that his Indian summer is over. I thought that was a great line, because they haven't really made that much of a big deal about Rob's age or his longevity during this comeback of his. I've talked about it on the show. Doc and I have talked about it before, how good Rob looks, how good he's been in the ring despite his age. He is of a certain vintage now, and he can still get it done in the ring. And Barrett brings that up in a very subtle way and a really nice line, saying that RVD's Indian summer is about to end. And then Barrett sits down and joins the commentators as a guest commentator for the match, and he says, it's me, it's BNB, which I also thought was cool. I'm really liking the Bad News Barrett thing. I think Wade has really taken it and is running with it and is doing a really good job. So there's a good match that breaks out between RVD and Cesaro. They have a decent match. The end comes when first RVD and Cesaro are brawling on the floor, and Rob kicks Barrett at the announce table. And then a few seconds after that, there's Barrett attempts to interfere in the match. He gets up from that kick and he reaches through the ropes to get at Rob, and Rob kicks him again, but off the distraction, Cesaro is able to grab RVD and German suplex him with a bridge for the pin. So nice to see the German suplex getting over as a finish again. He's used it so many times now, Cesaro, that it's almost becoming like his secondary finisher, which is cool by me because I always liked the German suplex. It's a great old school move, and it's nice to see it getting a few pins here and there. After the match, Sheamus runs out to build toward his match with Cesaro, and he brogue kicks Cesaro, knocks him out, and then he shakes the unconscious hand of Cesaro, which is a callback to something that happened last week on Raw when Cesaro, when he beat Sheamus in the non-title match to earn the title shot and refused to shake Sheamus's hand, and then on SmackDown last week he attacked Sheamus during a match and knocked him out with a neutralizer on the floor and then shook his unconscious hand. So this is a little payback from Sheamus. I'm expecting that will be a decent match at the pay-per-view. Sheamus has shown that he can bring it in the ring when he's with the right guy, and Cesaro is one of the best guys on the roster right now. He's one of my favorites. I expect that will be a decent match. And RVD versus Barrett will probably be good too. But the one I'm really looking forward to in terms of match quality is Cesaro and Sheamus. I think that'll be a good one. A few segments were skipped for Hulu after this. I didn't get to see these segments, so I can't tell you for sure how good they were, but they both seem like, just from the descriptions I've read, the sort of segments that I probably wouldn't count among my favorites on the show. Cut out for Hulu was a Divas match between Eva Marie and Summer Rae. Eva won that match with a roll-up after Summer was distracted by Fandango and Layla. And then there was also a match between Drew McIntyre and El Torito, which El Torito won. Drew McIntyre, former Intercontinental Champion, was pinned by El Torito after some distracting by Los Matadors, and then Hornswoggle attacked Torito afterward. They're building to a match between Hornswoggle and Torito on the pre-show of the next event, Payback, and it will be a hair versus mask match, a really classic old-school lucha stipulation between Hornswoggle and Torito, hair versus mask. So Doc likes midget matches, so he's probably looking forward to that. Next, Wyatt family promo. Bray Wyatt comes out and he's hyping his last man standing match with Cena for Payback. He sings what has really become his catchphrase the last few weeks. He used to say follow the buzzards. Now he says he sings he's got the whole world in his hands. I don't have a problem with that. I like that gimmick. I think Bray singing he's got the whole world in his hands, it always reminds me of the great film Night of the Hunter. I don't know how many of you guys have ever seen that movie, but if you haven't seen Night of the Hunter, go back and see it. It's a great classic black and white movie from the 50s, starring the great Robert Mitchum, and he plays like an evil preacher who has come to town, and he marries a woman and sort of plots these sinister things for her and her children. It's a really great sort of psychological thriller / horror movie. And Mitchum's evil preacher character sings the song Leaning. Leaning, leaning, safe and sound from all alarm. He sings that song repeatedly, and it takes on a very sinister, evil tone when he sings it. And that's the same sort of thing that Bray Wyatt has done with He's Got the Whole World in His Hands. I wonder if it's an intentional reference to that, if someone on the writing team or if Bray Wyatt are also Night of the Hunter fans and they're intentionally doing the same sort of thing. But whether or not they are, it's working for me. I really like it. I'm not sick of it yet. They haven't quite overdone it. And Wyatt's promo is saying he really does have the whole world in his hands. That's never been more true than it is right now with Bray Wyatt. And then to really get himself over as a heel, because I guess they're sort of concerned about the tweener reaction that Bray has been receiving. He's getting a lot of babyface reactions, and it's based on the booking of this segment that I'm talking about. It seems like they've really decided they want to nail him down as a heel. And how do they nail people down as heels in the WWE? you have them attack the announcers. That's the best way, at least as far as the WWE writing creative team is concerned. That seems to be their thought as the best way of getting a guy over as a heel. So Bray Wyatt calls Jerry the King Lawler into the ring. They're in Tennessee. Lawler is the hometown boy. So of course you know that he's going to have to take some shit. Jerry Lawler's hometown boy gimmick has become like the opposite of the usual. You know that he's not going to get to go over anybody. He's not going to get to look good. He's going to get picked on in his hometown because they love to get that cheap heel heat off of picking on Lawler. So Bray calls Jerry Lawler into the ring, and Lawler doesn't want to come, and so Harper and Rowan come out to sort of intimidate him to get in the ring. JBL rises to defend Jerry and gets taken out. Harper clotheslines JBL, knocks him out. A clothesline from hell, you might have called it. It was a very, very nasty clothesline from Luke Harper. So Lawler gets in the ring, and they have him sit down in a steel folding chair in the middle of the ring, and Bray cuts a promo on Lawler, blaming him in part for the rise of John Cena, saying that one of the reasons that John Cena became such a popular figure and has taken over the WWE and been so dominant and so ever-present for all these years is because Lawler has put him over so much on commentary and has never questioned his success or his beliefs, never called Cena out for his hypocrisy or anything. And Bray is getting all up in Lawler's face. He stands him up out of the chair. He's about to attack him, to hit him with the Sister Abigail, when finally John Cena runs out. I'm not sure what John was waiting for. Maybe he was sitting in the back watching on the monitor going, well, maybe they're not going to kick Jerry's ass. Maybe I can just hang out and just wait this one out. But when it looks like they're literally 2 seconds away from beating the shit out of heart attack victim and sextagenarian Jerry Lawler, Cena finally runs out, and Harper and Rowan take Cena out. They jump on Cena, and while they're forcing Cena to watch, Bray is about to give Lawler the Sister Abigail again when the Usos come running out, and the Usos make the save for the save, and anyway, Doc has joined us. So Doc,
sorry about that, bro. Yeah,
that's okay, man.
I'm back to work this week, and I'm just not used to the schedule. So
it's no problem.
I set an alarm saying I want to take an hour nap, and then of course I wake up, my alarm is going off. I'm like, I said hour, damn it!
It's no problem. I'm just recapping Raw. I'm talking about the Cena versus Wyatt's segment.
Yeah.
So Cena gets beaten up by the Wyatts. Bray is about to give Sister Abigail to Lawler. Then the Usos run out to save Cena, who ran out to save Lawler. And the Usos and Cena hold the ring. The Wyatts are outside the ring, and Cena cuts a promo on the Wyatts saying that Bray's not necessary evil. He's just plain evil. And then he says at Payback he'll bring Bray Wyatt to justice. And then he finishes off with this line. He says, "Justice may be blind, but Bray Wyatt, for you, Payback will be a bitch."
Mm-hmm.
A little bit of potty mouth from Cena there.
Yeah, it seems like John Cena is the only one these days that's allowed to use language. You know, your biggest hero, but you know he's the one that is going to threaten you by using language.
Yeah, the baby face, the greatest white meat baby face of all time, and he's the only one who gets to cuss.
It's okay. Hogan used chairs and stuff back in the day, so he was a big, huge cheater. So I always say John Cena's the Hogan of today, and actually Hulk Hogan actually said that too.
Yeah, and at least John Cena doesn't threaten to beat women to get babyface pops. Hogan used to do that all the time. Next, there were a couple of segments. I explained earlier, Doc. I'm doing this as I usually do from the Hulu version, and I'm in my notes. I noted when they cut out segments for Hulu, so I didn't actually watch the cut stuff, but I know what was there. So maybe you can offer an opinion on the stuff that you've seen that I didn't get to watch. But they cut out the Zack Ryder versus Rusev match.
Nothing big there.
Yeah.
Actually, you know, I even posted on Facebook just seconds before I heard Zach coming down. And I was just about to fall asleep, and I cracked my eye open, and I just picked up my phone, and I said, "So, who's beating Zack Ryder tonight?" and then the music hit. I'm like, never mind.
Yeah. At least you know when you see Zack come out, you know he's losing, and then when you see Rusev come out, you know at least it'll be a short night. for
Hmm.
Zach. He won't have. And then I guess, and then Big E came out, I guess, right? And they
Yeah,
did
Big
Big
E
E and
came down
Rusev.
because of what happened last week, and it looks like we're doing, like we said, we're talking about. What the hell is this? It looks like they are pushing the Big E versus Rusev match, and they gave Big E a little bit last night. They
Yeah.
not a whole lot, but they gave him enough to make it look like he is going to have a good chance against Rusev. But Rusev's too new, so forget it, Big E. You're not going to beat the man. He's got
Yeah.
Putin in his corner, man. What are you talking about? He's got Putin standing behind him there. There ain't no way when you're holding a load of Putin behind you, there's nothing stopping you.
I think to add interest, assuming that they're building to a Rusev versus Big E match, which I don't think they officially announced, but I assume is coming pretty soon. They might even add it to Payback. Uh, they should add as a stipulation that if Rusev wins, that Big E will be annexed as a part of Russia, just like Crimea in the Ukraine. They should do
would be
that.
fun.
They should do that from now on. Whenever Rusev beats a guy, that person is considered to be a part of Russia.
Yeah.
I mean,
You're not part of our group. We're taking you over, but that is good because that's what WWE is talking about. When they've gotten a little bit of heat over the fact that they're using Putin and running off that, and they're talking about, well, that's what we do. We look at what's fresh in the storylines, and we sometimes mirror those things that are going on in the news. So that would be great if they just keep on going. Go with the whole Russia story, and anybody that Rusev beats, you are now being absorbed by
exactly.
by the Russians.
Exactly. You're a part of Russia now, whether you like it or not, just like the Crimeans. Next was there was a tag team match, Batista and Orton versus the Rhodes Brothers. And man, I have mixed feelings about this. I thought this was a good match. I thought that for most of it, really, until the end, I thought that Cody, they got some offense in here. I thought he looked strong. I thought Goldust looked great, as he usually does. But then Cody eats the pin. He goes for the disaster kick and gets RKO'd, and then Orton RKO's him again and pins him. And then Justin Roberts announces that he's just been informed that actually this isn't just a tag match, this is an elimination match. And so it'll be 2-on-1 versus Goldust, and for the final fall here, it'll be no holds barred. And then it's basically Batista and Orton just kicking the shit out of Goldust.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that it was a poorly worked match, and it's like I understand what they're doing, trying to make Orton and Batista look like dangerous and look like killers, but man, it sucks that this was Goldust and Cody's job. I mean, my note in my notes was, well, at least they didn't use the Usos because they're the tag champions, but man, when you think about how hot Cody and Goldust were last year, now, I mean, they're completely just killed dead.
Yeah, they were at this point last night. They were used as fodder to push a storyline. That was about it.
Yeah, it's
they're not involved in. They're not involved in at all. So
right, yeah,
that's all you're going to be used for this week. Sorry.
And they're not, yeah, really, and they don't have anything right now because they're not even really pushing the breakup angle anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Cody and Goldust are they've literally got nothing.
Yeah, which is a shame. It's like we've pushed this match and pushed it. Well, at least Goldust has pushed this match. He's always wanted it, and I wouldn't think that Cody would be against it. But it was rumored on the internet for quite some time that that's what Goldust wanted, and it seemed like maybe that was possible here in the future, but they just ignored it. Just like the Shield breakup. There were just some things that you thought were coming. Never happened, and that's just one of them, and now they're lost in limbo.
Yeah, that's one of the worst things about when the creative has these problems where it looks like they're building to something, and then it's like they just completely forget about it. And it's not even that they change direction, it's that they leave everybody hanging. Like, they go from Cody and Goldust being a team to looks like they're building to the breakup, and then they abandon the breakup, but they don't replace it with anything. It's just, oh, fuck it. They just have nothing. At least with the Shield, they abandoned that breakup angle and turned them right into the program with Evolution, I mean, it was still like a change in direction. It felt kind of sudden, but at least the Shield are still being used and have something important to do. Cody and Goldust are just kind of floating.
Yeah, you kept the Shield busy enough to where everybody forgot that they're almost at the point where they forgot they were about to break up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Next is Bo Dallas's Raw debut. He officially debuted on the main roster on SmackDown, which I didn't see because I almost never watched SmackDown. But this was a rematch of the SmackDown match, Bo versus Sin Cara, and Bo does the T-Bow pose in the ring before the match. I guess now it's officially T-Bow. I mean, because Bo's doing it. And then he cuts a short promo before the match starts about how it's not we don't conquer the mountain, we conquer ourselves, and all we have to do if we want to win is Bo leave. And then they have a match which Bo wins. He hits his finish, which is a tornado bulldog, which JBL tells us is officially called the Bo Dog. And then he takes a victory lap afterwards like he just won the world title. Which I guess is going to be another part of the gimmick. Like every tiny little accomplishment he does, he's going to treat like it's the greatest thing ever. And then he gets on the mic and he thanks his Bo leavers and tells them all they have to do is Bo leave. And he hugs Sin Cara, very sportsmanlike. And then he leaves the ring like still blowing kisses and waving his hands. Like I love Bo.
Well, they did something similar on Saturday. Bo won his match on Saturday, and he basically got up in Sin Cara's face and said that he did a really good job, and that all he's got to do is keep trying, and he can achieve to be someone that he is. All he has to do is Bo leave. So it's like he didn't get on the mic, but the camera being close up went to the corner where he was talking to him and caught all that conversation. And we've seen almost the damn thing, similar thing that happened on Raw, and I think WWE realizes nobody's watching SmackDown, so let's give them something fairly similar on Raw. They won't care, and the fans who did see it, they won't care either. And honestly, you say you like Bo, and I'm on the fence with this new batch of NXT guys or NXT people that are coming over.
Yeah.
It's just that I don't know if their angles, their gimmicks are going to float over here in the WWE. It's easy to get over an angle in a building full of 200 people.
That's true.
And it's really like Emma. Emma really got lost. She hasn't, except for her match last night, really hasn't been showcased that much as being a good talent wrestler, just an idiotic bubble popping, dancer.
Yeah.
Adam Rose, I have that same feeling about him. It's like that gimmick itself, I'm just not really sure about. I don't think it's going to fly. There's just something on the annoying side about that gimmick. Paige, she has a lot of ability, and they are showcasing it a lot, but it's not like the Wyatt family. They're not like the Wyatt family who they had vignettes that brought them and introduced them to the company before they made their debut. Bo kind of did that a little bit, but I personally think his gimmick's kind of stupid. But
a lot of people feel that way. I'm not. I mean, I know I'm not in the majority, and it all, to me, it all comes back to whether or not he holds my interest in the ring. I mean, if he's still doing this gimmick like 6 months from now and he's having shitty matches with people, I probably won't be as high on Bo as I am now. But I think it's a funny gimmick. I think he does a good job with it. We'll wait and see if it gets over. I mean, I think part of the problem is not only that the NXT live crowd is a lot different than the live crowds they get at Raw. I think you're right. That has turned out to be a big problem. But I think it's also maybe that they're bringing up new guys so fast and so many of them. Like just think about, like last year they brought up the Shield and they brought up the Wyatts. This year already, and they brought up Big E too, but this year they brought up Paige and Emma and Adam Rose and Bo Dallas, and it's only May. I mean, and Rusev, yeah, and they brought up all these new guys from NXT, And I don't blame them for bringing the new guys in, because I do feel like the roster needs to be refreshed a little bit. But that's kind of their fault.
Mhm.
You know, it's been so stagnant for so long, and now it's like, oh, we've got NXT. Let's bring some of these new guys up. And, you know, and it helps them push NXT, too, because they want people to watch that on the network. So, you know, I mean, it makes sense, but there's so many new guys coming in that it's like, you know, you can't keep track of them.
It makes me wonder if the WWE actually, just like the old WWF in the 80s, will be its own downfall, as it has taken way too many talents from NXT, and it will have to close its doors because it won't be able to survive on what it has left now.
You know, I think, I mean, people, because I know people have said, who are like me, are big fans of NXT, you know, they look at guys that are still in NXT, like Sami Zayn, who, just based on his talent, you would think is ready to come up right now. And you would think, like, why would you bring Bo up and not Sami Zayn? Sami Zayn is, right now, is one of the best workers in the company. And maybe the reason is they think maybe they need him for NXT. Because now that they've brought up all these guys, NXT's starting to look a little thin. Like,
yeah, I noticed that, and it takes, you know, stars from the regular roster to fill in those voids and make it more exciting to build on the characters that are already there, and then you make those wrestlers like, say, Natalya, who is officially part of the main roster but is over in NXT all the time. So what's that make her look like if she's never been able to accomplish anything in WWE, is on the roster, but then fails against Charlotte to pick up the NXT title? What does that really say about her? I'm like, do you belong in that main roster now, or should you just stay in NXT, even though you can't win in NXT either?
Right. Well, yeah, because that's actually one of the problems, and I don't know if they foresaw this or if this is completely unexpected, but, you know, back when NXT wasn't on TV in the States, and it was a much smaller outlet and not as many people were watching it, and they never mentioned it really on the main shows, it was okay maybe for a main roster talent to come down and lose to an NXT guy. Like Cesaro lost to Sami Zayn. It didn't kill Cesaro's heat at all, because it was a good match and Sami Zayn is a great wrestler, and also because most people who watch Raw and SmackDown didn't even see it. But now they're pushing NXT on the main show. They're telling you every week, go watch NXT on WWE Network, and it's officially sort of a part of the show now. And it so you can't exactly have, you know, Cesaro or one of your other main roster talents go down and just lose to one of the new guys, you know, because now that officially happened now. You know. But yeah, I agree with you. I mean, Natalya has been down there a lot and has put a lot of those divas over. And it kind of now, because it's all part of one big thing, now it kind of makes Natalya look like a loser. Because she's not doing shit on Raw, you know, and she's working in NXT, and she doesn't always win, you know. I
haven't seen Kali lately, so I guess there's not much for Natalya to do.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
She needs a new boyfriend.
Yeah, well, and you know, they have her doing. She's in with all that Total Divas stuff, which is just, I mean, it's just the same shit. It's here now. Let's have a match with the girls from Total Divas, and the program is always the same. It's all they had a fight on Total Divas, so now they're gonna have a match. Like it's like it feels like they're doing the same thing over and over with them. Well, and you know, you mentioned Paige, how they're getting behind Paige and giving her a good push, and that's true, and you know, I like that because I like Paige, and I like that they're letting her do her talking in the ring. But I think it's interesting that her gimmick and her character really isn't like her NXT gimmick. Like, you know, she hasn't really shown much personality. Like in NXT, they called her the anti-diva. You know, she didn't have friends. She was sort of a loner, and she kind of looked down her nose at like the pretty girls, the model-looking girls, and she was a fighter, and she wasn't there to make friends. She was there to fight. And they haven't really let us see that side of her at all on Raw. They just, you know, she came in, she won the title, and now she's just been wrestling ever since. And that's fine. I got no complaints about letting her wrestle, but, you know, it feels a little weird to spend like 2 years on her in NXT and then bring her up and not really let her do that gimmick. You know?
Yeah, the thing about Paige that bugs me the most is like it's like she is supposed to be that anti-diva, be everything that you were used to seeing that the WWE creates, and they had their little spring festivity calendar or photo thing they did just a few weeks ago, and with the divas, and WWE website do this all the time, and sure enough,
Yeah.
there's Emma and Paige. And this whole pictorial, and they're wearing their bathing suits and having a little good time around. I guess it's the Divas house. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But it was just one of those things. I'm kind of taking it back. It's like, well, you're supposed to be the anti-diva, but you're just rolling along and doing the same old thing everybody else is doing. That I'm complaining because you look good in the bathing suit.
Right. But yeah, and it's one of those things where, like, on the one hand, the WWE writers and the creative team, they want us to treat them like a TV show and treat these wrestlers like characters. But then it's like they have Paige do something that Paige wouldn't do, and it's like, well, why? It's like they want to have it both ways, It's like either you're writing like a drama and you're expecting us to treat these people like characters on any other show, or you're not,
Yeah, it's amazing to me that that fans people who aren't wrestling fans will say that wrestling, and even wrestling fans will say this, that wrestling is like a soap opera.
Yeah.
But it just takes, I watch a lot of soap operas. I watch Days of Our Lives every day, and wrestling is nothing like a soap opera, because at least in the soap opera, their stories tend to make a little sense, even if it's far-fetched.
Yeah. There's more consistent payoffs on soap operas.
They're going to see a story through.
Yeah. You might not like it, but there's going to be an end somewhere.
Yep.
Next on Raw was the long-awaited segment between Bryan and Steph, where she calls him out to ask him to relinquish the title. She said earlier in her promo at the beginning of the show that she thinks Bryan is going to do this because he knows it's the right thing to do, because he knows that he can't be the fighting champion that the people deserve. And Bryan comes out with both belts. He gets a nice reaction. They're chanting yes. Steph makes sure to put over that he faces a long road to recovery. She's really milking like how hurt he is and how he's going to be out for such a long time, and it's only fair that he gives up the title. She makes a good point in terms of the storyline, where she says the reason she's not just stripping him of the title is because it would only make the people cheer for him more. So that at least explains why they haven't done that, because a lot of people are asking, like, if Stephanie and Triple H hate Bryan so much, why didn't they take the belt off of him as soon as they heard he was injured? Like, it makes no sense for these bosses who hate him to let him keep the title this long. But that's at least an offered explanation, that she's afraid it'll just get him over even more. And Bryan says that Steph is a liar because she said that she couldn't control Kane, and yet she sicked Kane on Brad Maddox earlier, so clearly she does control Kane. And he says even though there's no shame in handing over the title if you're injured and then coming back healthy and fighting for it, he's not going to do that, because it's not about him, it's about how Stephanie has been bitter about Bryan beating Triple H and then winning the title at WrestleMania, and that's why she wants the title, not because of the fans or because of the prestige of the title or wanting to have an active champion. It's all about her and her own grudge against Bryan. So his answer to her request to give up the title is no, a word that he says she probably isn't used to hearing.
I just wish that they would uphold the old rules of championship matches, which means that
Every 30 days.
Yeah, every 30 days. You just put that in motion, saying, well, technically you have to defend that belt within 30 days, or we have no choice but to strip you. And it's obvious they want to keep the belt on Bryan as long as they possibly can. They've been on a long road to get here. And just to give it, just have that Bryan curse. Maybe he is a B player. He's an A+ wrestler, but with a B+ body.
Right.
He is small in stature. He's got a lot of big guys he's going to have to go through every single night in order to look good as a champion. I mean, it's not easy. And obviously, he's had this injury for a long time, for quite a while, so it's something that's just been nagging him. But Stephanie might be right about Daniel Bryan. As much as I like him, he just might not have that body. But yeah, I believe they really should uphold legitimately the 30-day clause, and that really, if you run into any of these problems, there's your story. You have 30 days to defend it, or you get stripped, and we find a new champion. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the one thing maybe against that would be that they certainly weren't worried about the 30-day clause when Dean Ambrose was the U.S. champion, but I mean they've ignored shit like that before. I mean,
they didn't do it when Hulk Hogan was the champion.
No,
they didn't uphold that rule.
No. But yeah, in terms of if the story is going to be, should Bryan be allowed to keep the title? It does. I mean, I don't think they've even mentioned the 30-day requirement, and you would think that they would at least want to mention that to just remind fans of it and to put it in our heads that it's not like Bryan can just take the summer off and get healthy, and that if Steph and Triple H take the belt off him, they're doing it because they don't like him. Like, they should at least introduce that has traditionally been the rule.
Mm-hmm.
But so anyway, he doesn't give up the title, and she doesn't strip him of the title. She gives him one more chance. Talk about dragging it out.
Mm-hmm.
He can come to Payback, and he can choose then at Payback to either give up the title there, or if he doesn't, Stephanie's going to fire Brie Bella because she's in breach of contract for shoving Stephanie when she was getting into the ambulance after Kane laid Daniel Bryan out 2 weeks ago. So that's his choice.
I hope he doesn't put that up. I hope he does not give that belt up at Payback.
Me neither. Because even if they say, well, he's doing it for his wife, it still makes him look weak.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he had the chance to do it tonight, and he said, how there's no shame in it. But then he chose to keep it. So after that, if he goes back on his word and changes his mind and gives up it just really makes him look weak.
Makes you look like Bret Hart. You're holding on to a title you don't deserve.
Yeah. I mean, no. I'm sure that he's still only a few weeks removed from surgery, so I doubt that he's cleared to do anything physical at this point. But they could do something like that. Maybe they could do something similar to what they did 2 weeks ago, where they could have Kane or somebody attack him off camera, and just have him, laying on the floor like he's been, like they beat him up again, and then maybe they could use that as the excuse for stripping him of the title.
Or if Kane's not available for the pay-per-view, which I wouldn't imagine he is, considering Bryan's not going to be able to wrestle, you run the storyline where, okay, he's worried about Bray all evening, and somewhere in the midst of the evening, she just turns up missing. However, that's possible, turning up missing. But she turns up missing, and that will send Bryan searching for her. Kane's not in the building. She's not in the building. This will suspect that Kane did something with Brie, and therefore you can keep it interesting, at least in storyline, all night without actually having to bring a match into it. And then that'll be the reason why he can delay it even longer. Like, you set me up by having your monster Kane do something to my wife, and therefore you diverted my attention in order for you to get this belt off of me, so that I am not capable of doing what I should have done at the pay-per-view.
Wow, that's such a great idea that when they don't do that, I'm probably going to be disappointed. That would be great, because then they can spin it out at least for another week or two, because they could say, well, Bryan didn't show up,
Mm-hmm.
They could, yeah, that would be great. I understand that they're kind of in a corner with Bryan being injured, and like you said, and I agree with you, like they feel like, it wouldn't be a great thing to take the belt off of him now because he just won it, and it was such a big deal for him to win the title, and to have him just lose it to an injury at this point would just feel really shitty. But at the same time, he's unable to wrestle for probably, I would say, at least a month. I don't know how optimistic they are about him coming back, but I would say at least a month, if not more. And so this actually gives them a way of building to something important with Bryan at the pay-per-view, giving Bryan fans a reason to watch the show without having to promise him being in a match that they know he can't do, or require him to work a match that he can't work. So normally I'm not a fan of promoting angles on pay-per-views, but this is one of those cases where I can sort of understand why they're doing it, and obviously they're just trying to buy as much time as they can until Bryan can either come back and defend the title, or they decide, okay, we're just going to have to take the belt off of him. So I can kind of understand where they're coming from with this. Did you have something to say?
No, not really. It's like a thought was forming in here. Like I saw this cloud of thoughts like trying to form up in my mind, and it just this you said something which triggered a thought, but then I've been cleaning my little medal that I have, and I'm putting that shit down.
It's like in Al Pacino and Dick Tracy. I'm going to have a thought. Yeah, I'm definitely going to have a thought. Next, there's some more stuff that they cut out for Hulu, so I didn't get to see Alicia versus Emma, but Emma won, and then Alicia flipped out again. And then after that,
ironic that she won too, because I wouldn't think after her strong showing against Paige that she would have. That I thought she probably would have fared a little bit better against Emma. I don't think her feud with Paige is done.
Well, no, they have a match at Payback.
Mm-hmm.
They're wrestling at Payback. It does seem a little. I mean, I know that like they sort of Emma. I think didn't Emma sort of roll her up, like it was one of those like out of nowhere pins. So Alicia didn't look like super weak, but still, I mean, you've got a match on the pay-per-view for the championship. Like it's a little weird that they had her lose.
Yeah, it just shows you WWE don't care about their women. They just use them to go out there, put in tight outfits, shake your ass, and that's really bad. Because I mean, wrestling is mainly a guy sport. That's what the guys mostly like. There are a fair many women out there, but it's mostly guys.
Yeah.
Which is why they treat their women the way they do in WWE. They think us guys don't care. Me, I look at it as they're mistreating the women, as they always do. They're not representing them properly in wrestling. They just want some eye candy so that you can be distracted about the shitty wrestling.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like even when it seems like they're putting forth an effort and trying to book matches for the Divas division, they do shit where it just doesn't make any sense, like having the challenger lose a match clean on the last episode of Raw before the match. And then they also cut out on Hulu the Sandow versus Adam Rose match, which ended with another Adam Rose versus Jack Swagger pull-aparts. What did you think of that? I didn't get to see that either.
It was a silly match. The comedy value was there, though. I do like seeing Damien Sandow, because it would be like Damien Sandow to me is like that guy who they don't have nothing for him, and as long as he keeps doing something, he's still employed at least. He's Zack Ryder. He's really a better Zack Ryder at this point. He's better than Zack Ryder.
Yeah.
But he does the exact same thing. He's really has been moved to someone they elevated a little bit and then pushed back down so he can elevate new talent coming in. And Adam Rose got the advantage over that. He dressed like Davy Crockett last night, which I thought was great.
Sorry, I missed that.
I guess he's trying to be a rosebud, proving though that he's not a lemon at least to Adam Rose. So he dresses up like Davy Crockett's got the coonskin hat on and everything. So I thought at least that was pretty good.
I am not a lemon.
It's just one of those things. It sucks. I swear last night Raw got a little bit monotonous for me, because it seemed like, and I know you're only a week out of the pay-per-view, but it seemed like so many matches did not have any clean finishes. You had distractions upon distractions upon distractions that made people lose. Whether it's whether you're pulling El Dorito's tail off, or the other luchador wrestlers, luchadores, jump up and distract Drew and cost him a match against a midget, which I like midget wrestling, but I like midget versus midget wrestling. Anytime someone like say Drew, when he got in that ring, Drew's an impressive specimen. He's got that height, he's got that look, he's got that body. He just simply doesn't have it all. And I think they kind of made him look strong against El Torito, but ultimately made him look like a fool.
Yeah.
And and for Hornswoggle pulled the damn tail off, and he acted like it was his real tail and not just part of his outfit.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing. It's like, okay, you're pushing the comedy boundaries here. But last night, and the Damien Sandow thing was the same thing. It was just too much. There's too much distraction going on right now to have had a good night of really good wrestling. Clean matches, clean finishes. Just too much of that last night.
Yeah, that's a good point. You did see that distraction finish repeated over and over and over again. Are you looking forward to the mask versus hair match between the midgets? That's the pre-show match.
It's funny
Payback.
because
Yeah.
I haven't heard that it was coming yet, but I predicted it.
Yeah, yeah.
Because as soon as I saw Hornswoggle going for the mask, I said, oh, well, they should do a mask versus hair match. Yeah, because and you just announced it there that they're doing this. So
yeah, they're officially doing
excited.
it. So.
Good. I don't know what it's going to be like seeing a bald Hornswoggle, but
Yeah.
and he had a crew cut back in the day, so it can't be much of a difference. His hair is grown out, but he did originally come in with a crew cut, a little short, thinly cut.
Yeah, and, it is. I mean, he has been growing his hair out. I wonder how long they've had this in the cards of wanting to do something with the two midgets and knowing that the blow off was going to be mask versus hair. I mean, so Hornswoggle's been growing it out. So, like I remember when they did the hair versus hair match back in WCW with Eddie Guerrero versus Chavo, and Chavo lost and had to cut his hair, but Chavo never really had that much hair anyway, and then he grew it right back. So it's like, who cares? Eddie at least had the mullet. Like if Eddie would have lost the hair match, that would have been like a big deal, but Chavo lost, and who cares? And then he grew it right back.
That would be the same for me. I would bet my hair on any match simply because I know if I got shaved bald a week later, I'm sporting a head of hair that looks just fine.
Like, oh yeah, sure, I'll lose the hair match, sure, whatever.
I don't look good bald though. I really don't look good bald. I have a protruding bone that goes across my head like this. There's a bone right in the middle that sticks up and is very prominent when I'm bald.
Well. You have to grow
it's an extra large cage for my brain.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. You just need your skull knew that it needed more space, so it just kind of. Next is Sheamus versus Alberto Del Rio. I thought this was a decent match, a really hard fought match, and Del Rio, man, was kicking the shit out of Sheamus in the head. Kicked him in the head 2 or 3 times. And they laid out the match, so Sheamus was kind of loopy at the end from getting kicked in the head so often, and then he takes a near fall. It looks like Del Rio was almost going to pin him when he hits that one last really hard side kick to the head, but then he kicks out. Del Rio goes for the cross arm breaker, and Sheamus pushes him off, and Brogue kicks him out of nowhere off the ropes and gets the pin. And then I thought this was a neat sort of fake out. Paul Heyman is at ringside and announces that Sheamus is the winner instead of Justin Roberts. And he says he's getting real creative with the Brock Lesnar Undertaker stuff because he's mentioned that every week since WrestleMania. And this week he sneaks it in by saying that Sheamus is the winner, but he didn't beat a Paul Heyman guy, so the win didn't have any meaning, unlike when Brock Lesnar beat The Undertaker at WrestleMania. So I thought that was really, he didn't lead with it, he snuck it in. And then while Sheamus is distracted by Paul Heyman, Cesaro runs in and jumps him and knocks him out and hits him with the neutralizer to push their match, because it's going to be Cesaro versus Sheamus for the U.S. title at Payback.
And so Paul Heyman's client will conquer the United States champion at Payback.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm expecting too. I mean,
they want this story to go any further, really. They with the half and half, appearances of Brock Lesnar. We haven't seen him since WrestleMania. And I think it would be in their best interest to beef up the the Heyman thing, not just one guy, but let's bring in some more guys. You know, the whole Heyman guy club. I think you got something there. So why are you just kind of hovering around just one guy in the club?
Yeah, because Brock is essentially not there, you know, and Cesaro is the only guy. And yeah, I agree with you. I mean, we'll go through our predictions at the end after we're done with Raw, but yeah, I mean, Cesaro's got to win there, right? I mean, I know that Sheamus just got the title, but I mean, Cesaro's got to win that match. Next, it's our main event contract signing. So I guess technically, Sheamus and Alberto Del Rio just main evented Raw because there was the last. Yeah. And then the main event is actually the contract signing, and actually they do it a little different than they usually do. It's not. I mean, it essentially is what all contract signings turn out to be, because it ends just with the two sides fighting each other. The contract signing is never just about signing a contract. It always ends up as a brawl. But the Shield comes out and kind of subverts that early on when they say, you know what, we're not going to do the contract signing thing. They throw the table out of the ring and toss the chairs and basically just say, Evolution, come on down, let's just do this. So Triple H and Batista and Orton come down, and Triple H tries to talk the Shield out of it. He basically tells them if they sign the contract and they have the match against Evolution at the pay-per-view, and it's going to be no holds barred under elimination rules, that it'll be the end of the Shield. That the Shield can't adapt. They can't beat Evolution, and Evolution is around because unlike the Shield, they're not flashes in the pan. They've stood the test of time, and they've adapted, and they've been able to hang on, and that's why they're great, and that's why the Shield is going to lose. And of course, the Shield signed the contract. They're not intimidated. And there's a nice moment where Triple H starts to talk, but then Roman Reigns cuts him off. And it was hard to hear what he said. I think he called him a bitch. But I think, yeah, and he said, Roman Reigns cuts Triple H off in the middle of his sentence and goes, bitch, get in the ring and fight. And that's what happens. And ultimately, Roman pays for that. He pays for calling Triple H a bitch because at the end of the brawl, and yeah, you can't call Triple H a bitch.
Yeah, disrespectful.
So they have a brawl. Evolution ends up getting the better of it. Roman does hit the Superman punch on Batista, but it doesn't last very long because Triple H cracks him with the sledgehammer, and it ends up with Roman Reigns getting powerbombed through the table. That's the end of the show, with Evolution standing tall and the good guys, the heroes, the Shield, down for the count. So
I missed the end of the Raw. So Evolution stood tall over the Shield at the end of it, huh?
Yeah. Batista and Batista power bombed him through the table, and they did the triple power bomb thing where Orton and Triple H were like shoving him down like the Shield always does, and that was the end.
Triple H has got to watch that standing the test of time crap because he knows he's running with Batista, right?
Yeah, really. I guess does it count as standing the test of time if you debut when you're like 40 and then the only reason you're still around now is because you took like 5 years off in the middle of your career?
And your best friend is running the place?
Yeah, and your big babyface comeback was completely shit on by every wrestling fan in the world. And you had to turn heel if you wanted to still have a job. Yeah, I don't know, but it's I like the Evolution versus Shield thing. So yeah, that was the show. That was the go home Raw for Payback. I didn't think it was. I mean, it wasn't my favorite episode of Raw. I didn't hate it, but I agree with you, Doc, that the booking was a little repetitive with all of the run-ins and the distracted finishes.
Too many shenanigans.
Oh, too many shenanigans.
Yes. Where were you at all last night, Sheamus, you fella? You dumbass fella.
You boys need to stay back in the locker room and just mind your own business. You let those boys in the ring have their match now.
That's right. See, the first hour of Raw would have took me a little bit in the first place. Ever since then, I'd just be looking over my shoulder every time I went down to the fucking ring.
Really? The only guy on the show who seemed to have second thoughts about running in and interfering was fucking John Cena when he took like a million years to come down and save Lawler. Like, I mean, I know I know why they do it. They do it for drama, so Cena's music can hit and he can run out and save the day at the last second. But I mean, if you pretend that it's real for a moment, Like, it makes no sense. Like, John Cena's back there watching this going on in the ring, and his good friend Jerry Lawler is being surrounded by the Wyatt family. Like, why doesn't he run out as soon as that happens?
Exactly.
What is he waiting on? Well, maybe they're not going to do anything. I'll just let this play out. Maybe they'll let him go. And I cannot be on the show at all this week.
I'm just kind of hoping from that whole thing that somebody out there gets a still of Luke Harper grabbing a hold of John Cena and holding him around the throat while pulling his eyes open. And he's got this dumbass look on his face like, ah! And I'm like, I hope that there's a meme that pops out this week with that picture. It's going to be great. It's gotta be.
Yeah, that is that is a great meme picture.
He made some horrible goofy faces there with Luke trying to make him watch.
Okay, so let's talk about Payback. Let's do some predictions here. I said at the beginning of the show before you came in, it feels like this show has really snuck up on me. Like, it doesn't feel like it's been that long since Extreme Rules, but I guess it has. And of course, I guess it's different. They haven't done a show at the beginning of the month for a while. Usually the pay-per-views are sort of toward the end of the month. But okay, so far they have officially announced 6 matches, including the pre-show. I would guess that they're going to add Adam Rose versus Jack Swagger and probably Rusev versus Big E. At least one of those two, probably both of those, to the show, but they haven't announced it yet. So I'm just going to go with the matches they have officially announced. And the first one is the pre-show match that we mentioned before, the mask versus hair match, El Torito versus Hornswoggle. I'm going to say that El Torito wins that one. What do you think, Doc?
It'd be a shame. I love Hornswoggle. I wish they would at least give him some type of reward for being a guy that ran around and all he was available for was doing dumb gimmicks because you never brought anybody else in to wrestle with him. And as soon as you do, you make him fodder for this guy, which at least Hornswoggle, I take him for what he's worth and what he is. And the bull, he's wearing a mask, and it's a little silly, but midgets are a little silly. I see El Torito winning this because Hornswoggle is just one of those guys. He just rolls with the punches that's handed to him. So I'm trying to think these over. I don't want to lose. I'm going with El Dorito.
Yeah.
And that's I didn't mispronounce that. That's what I call him, El Dorito. So you can't count that as being wrong. El Dorito didn't win.
El Dorito. Yeah. Okay. Well, we agree on that one. Then is the Divas title match, Paige versus Alicia Fox. They've been building Alicia up a little bit, at least in terms of her gimmick, not in terms of her wrestling, because she lost this week. But I still think Paige is going to win that one. What do you say?
Yeah, I do think Paige is going to win because Alicia's outings against Paige, she's lost won one, but then lost that match against Emma. I might have had second thoughts if she won that match against Emma. This one probably will be a shocker. I would give the belt to Alicia. I'm going to say Alicia, but I would give the belt to Alicia, just to simply put Paige on the hunt instead of having to be the hunted. I think at this point Alicia has the personality. Now, Paige doesn't have that personality. She's a great wrestler, but she doesn't have the personality. That Alicia will have enough personality to run with that belt for a while and see what happens. So I'll go with Alicia on this.
Oh, okay, cool. Our first disagreement. Next, I don't think there's going to be too many of those. I get the feeling, I'm surprised that you called Alicia for that, but I think we're going to see eye to eye on a lot of these other ones.
Probably.
For the U.S. title is Sheamus versus Cesaro. We already talked about that. I think Cesaro is going to win.
And I think it would make sense for Cesaro to win. If they don't, you're taking all the steam out of the Heyman house.
Yeah. You can't just say, Paul Heyman guys are special and then not have them win.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the Intercontinental title match. Both mid-card singles titles defended for the first time in a while on a show. Yeah. Intercontinental title match.
That's because there's no world title match. I wonder if they're kicking themselves for unifying those world titles at this point.
Yeah,
because you could at least had a SmackDown champion wrestling.
Yeah, like, oh, hey, well, maybe we should now since Brian can't wrestle, maybe we should defend some of the other like 20 titles that we have. It's not that bad. They don't quite have 20 titles, but they have some titles they have not paid attention to very good for the last few years. So anyway, yeah, the Intercontinental title match. Bad News Barrett, the champion, defending against Rob Van Dam. I'm calling that one for Barrett. I like Rob, but I don't think Rob's really going anywhere.
No, it's going to be some bad news for RVD.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love Barrett. I think he's hot right now. So
yeah, big time.
I would love to see him advance a little further to that Intercontinental title. But if he can prove that he's a good champion there, that means he's ready to be a good champion up at the top.
I agree. I feel the same way. Next is the last man standing match, the third match, hopefully the rubber match in the Cena versus Wyatt feud. Last man standing, John Cena versus Bray Wyatt. This was one of the this and the next match are the only two that I thought were really close calls. I think it could go either way. So I'm going to kind of squint and grit my teeth and say that I think Bray Wyatt is going to win this one, but I think it's going to be really overbooked. Like, I think there's probably going to be interference by the Usos and by the other two Wyatts. There's going to be a lot of shit going on, and maybe there's going to be, some kind of clusterfuck finish where Bray wins, but he doesn't make Cena look weak like they did for the cage match. But I think Bray's going to win. So, what do you think?
I'm going to go John Cena in this match, simply, and okay. I would love to see Bray Wyatt win, and I think John Cena will win because we've already seen the last man standing count that Bray did on John last week, so unofficially Bray's already done it. It was that moral victory. I think that John Cena will overcome, and we got to keep John Cena strong. He's that alternative guy, if the whole Daniel Bryan thing doesn't work, we can always fall back. On John Cena, but that's what he's there for. So you want to keep him looking strong, and I think that this will be the ringer match where Bray Wyatt can move on to another opponent after that. But you keep Cena strong. Bray's not going to lose anything, not winning against Cena, so he's not going to lose a step. Cena's a proven wrestler in the business, so losing to him, and there's no shame in the losing to him. So I think, I'm going with Cena. I think he's going to beat Bray Wyatt in the last man standing, and then we're going to see this feud dissolve.
Yeah, I hope. Whatever the finish is, I do hope this is the last of this feud. I mean, it's kind of run out of steam. Even though I was really hot for it around WrestleMania time. Since then, it's kind of died off, and I mean, Bray still has awesome promos, but it's time for him to move on and start working with someone else. And I'm just curious to see who they're going to put Cena with, because he's been with Bray since February, and you're like, who's Cena gonna work with now? Because it seems like it's been such a long time since he's worked with anybody else. I'm curious if they'll put him with another one of the new guys, or if they'll try to, do something else with maybe one of the older guys, or what. It's always interesting to me because Cena's like their Hogan. It would
be nice that after this match he was delivered a little bit of bad news.
Oh, yes. So. Yes. And maybe some payback for when he made Barrett look like such a loser back during the Nexus angle. When he buried him in a pile of chairs at the end of their TLC match way back when. Way to make a new star. Have the hot new guy. That's still like freak. I know Wade was young back then, and he had just come in, and they were doing the Nexus thing. But it's like, really, this is your new heel, and you book him against John Cena, and you literally bury him at the end of a match. No wonder it took the guy 2 years to get back up to the level he's at now. But anyway, I would like to see that too, and I would like to see Bad News fucking wear Cena like a shoe. I would like to see him kick the shit out of him. But anyway,
a lot of Cena haters on that side of the camera, folks. A lot of them.
Well, I like Cena. I do. I don't hold it against Cena personally. I don't hold it. I really feel like. I mean, maybe I'm giving him too much credit, but I really feel like Cena would probably do whatever Vince asked him to do.
Sure.
Like, I don't think Cena would be like Hogan, or like to a lesser extent like Brett. Where if Vince said, okay, John, we're going to have you lose to Wade Barrett on the next pay-per-view, and he's going to go over clean, we're going to try to make him look really strong. Like, I don't think Cena would be as big of a baby about it as Brett would have been, or try to pull rank and switch the finish like Hogan would have,
I kind of wonder about that whole Brett story, and we'll get into that on another date about the whole screw job thing. I think that's something we should probably address in the future.
That would be a good show. Yeah. I love Brett, but I do think that I think Kevin Nash said at one point that Brett is a mark for himself, and I think that's probably a good way to look at it. He's one of the most incredible wrestlers that has ever lived. He's an amazing worker. He's one of my all-time favorites. But there's some things that he said, like he just, I don't know.
Sometimes wrestlers forget they're working a gimmick, right, Warrior?
Yeah, right. Exactly. It's not too soon to make that sort of joke, right?
No, never too soon.
No, it's never too soon. And then finally, what I guess is going to be the main event. I would imagine this match will go on last. Evolution versus the Shield in the 6-man elimination match. I guess if they don't do this, they'll put Cena versus Wyatt on last, but from the way they're positioning it on the show leading up, I would guess that Evolution versus the Shield is going to be the main event. No holds barred, 6-man elimination match, Evolution versus the Shield. This is another one that is really, really hard for me to call. It could go either way, but I think Evolution's going to win this one.
Ooh, that one's a tough one right there.
Yeah, isn't it? I know. I kind of went back and forth.
Yeah, wow. Got the eliminations coming. I think that your weak points are going to be Seth Rollins and Batista, so they're going to be out. But who goes out if between Randy Orton and Triple H? You don't want Randy Orton to look good, and God damn it, Triple H, you should be in the office, not in the ring. So this is how I put stuff together. Roman Reigns looking strong. Dean Ambrose is pinnable. I'll go with the Shield. In this one. I think they're going to win.
Nice.
you got Batista. He's going to be doing his thing for a while, and Triple H has his other duties. So it only leaves Randy Orton. We got to make these three people continue to look strong because Evolution's not going to be much longer.
Yeah, but see, I thought that I kind of thought that last month too, and then it turned out Evolution stuck around for another month. So we'll see. I'm still going to call it for Evolution, but I kind of, as a fan, I kind of hope that you're right. I would love to see the Shield win. I'd love to see the Shield look like fucking superheroes and beat Evolution.
Yeah, they had that moment. They had that steam behind Roman Reigns to push him to the top. The fans were there. Don't ignore that and don't let it die. Because if you do, you lose it. So it's like, just keep him strong.
I agree.
Don't make him do so many stupid little, side things where, he's getting over the crowd, celebrating the fact that he's ready for moves and everything. Just do the moves.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
Don't go, and shake the ass around and theatrics. All the theatrics that come with, setting up for a big punch.
Yeah, right. I mean, if they still did jobber matches, I could see him doing that. But I don't think he should do that like in a big important match. That just like if you're wrestling Randy Orton or Triple H or somebody, and you're a young guy like Roman Reigns, and you're supposed to want to get this big victory, and you're like this far away from hitting your finish and beating the guy, I mean, you shouldn't be showboating. You should fucking kill the guy. I agree with you there. But,
yeah, I always found it silly right before you hit your big match that you would have some kind of battle cry like Sheamus used to do, fella. Like, okay, yeah. I might have my ass kicked over there, but you didn't knock me deaf.
Right. Oh, he's about to go for his finish. I just heard him now.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I was listening to Jim Ross's podcast, which I don't listen to it as often as I do Steve Austin's, but I try to catch it whenever I think about it. And of course, Jim always talks about wrestling. His is even more wrestling focused than Austin's is. Mm-hmm. And he was talking about his pet peeves in the most recent episode I heard. And one of the things that Jim Ross hates, and I've heard him mention this in other interviews too, is he hates that the 10 punches in the corner spot, which everybody does. Like that's which it's understandable because it's a great babyface spot because the crowd counts along. It's really easy to get the people into it. But Jim Ross hates that spot, because he says you're standing there with the guy trapped in the corner. You're usually on the second rope, so you're punching down into the guy's face. You punch him square in the face 10 times, and not only does it not knock the guy out, it usually, I mean, that's not the end of the match. Nobody ever finishes with the 10 punches in the corner, and then the guy you were just punching square in the face from above 10 times. He doesn't have a black eye. He doesn't have a red face. He doesn't have bruises or cuts. So it exposes the business. It's basically a way of telling the fans that the fight they're watching is fake, which everybody knows anyway, but I guess Jim Ross's point is you're reminding them in the match. Like, you might as well just have Dolph Ziggler grab the microphone and go, we're not really fighting, right? Like, it kind of takes you out of it. And I don't know, I mean, I see what he's saying, but I don't necessarily agree. Like, I think it's important to keep the fans involved in the match.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with him. Yeah, I agree with. He's right. He's absolutely right.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is one of those moments in wrestling. It's a staple of the business. Everybody has done it for the longest time. So it's just something. It's just part of the show at this point. Just like running the ropes. Like, honestly, if I whipped you off the ropes, is there anything preventing you from just freaking stopping? Nothing.
Nothing.
I'm not throwing you so hard that my momentum is catapulting you off the other side of the ring and back into me. No, doesn't work that way.
Right. And I mean, yeah, we could do a whole show just talking about the spots that are in every wrestling match that just make no sense. Like not just the crisscross, but the drop down. Mm-hmm. And then the other guy runs over the guy who dropped down instead of just stopping and kicking him in the fucking head.
Curb stomping him. Yeah, exactly.
Like, the guy you're fighting is on the ground right in front of you. Don't run over him and hit the ropes. Fucking stomp him. Drop a fucking knee on his head. Like, kick him in the face.
Great to see. That would be good to see.
Man. Yeah. But see, I mean, I would love to do that, and like, maybe if we ever run our own wrestling company, we could do that, because then, like, after you do that, like, nobody else is ever allowed to do that spot. Because if once it happens once like one guy says, "Oh shit, I can just kick him in the teeth," when he does that, like, you can't do that in any other match, Well, who would ever do a drop down after that happens? But yeah, so it's just one of those things. I mean, I kind of try to strike a balance where, like, there's shit that happens in a wrestling match that would never happen in a legitimate fight, but you understand that there's other reasons to do it. To get the crowd involved, that sort of thing. It's just like a ref bump. That in real life, the referee would not be unconscious for that long.
What? No, it happens all the time. That's why I'm half loopy. That's why I'm half loopy and out of it half the time. That's why I take extended naps and stuff, and you can't hear the alarm going off right beside my head. I'm taking too many ref bumps. Those wrestlers are vicious.
They're mean.
They are.
They don't care.
They have no respect for the stripes.
I tell you what, though, speaking of pet peeves, that actually is one of my pet peeves, is ref bumps, because I feel like it's a shortcut. It's like, if you want to have somebody interfere in a match, but you don't want to have to do a DQ, but you want to have the guy interfere, so it's like, fuck it, we'll just do a ref bump, Or you want to do, like, the visual fall where a guy pins the guy, but there's no count, so he would have won the match. So he looks like like Hulk Hogan used to do that a lot. That's just a pet peeve of mine. I feel like it's anytime they book a ref bump, that it's a little bit lazy. Like, if you really thought about it, there must be a better way to do what you wanted to do. But that's just one of my pet peeves. So anyway, let's talk about our Legend of the Week this week, because you have a really, really great one this week.
I do have a really good one. This gentleman I met a long time ago in the wrestling business, and he will be forever remembered as being the one wrestler that was so cool that his death really meant something when he passed away. And I'm talking about Mr. Let me get his real name up here, because I always record him. I'm talking about Mr. Scott Charles Bigelow, better known as the Beast from the East, from Asbury Park, New Jersey. Bam Bigelow.
Yes.
The man was ferocious. He was a big man that I mean, everybody is really big on Samoa Joe and the way he works. Well, Bam Bam was that guy. That's the way Bam Bam moved. He did not move like a big man. He moved like a cruiserweight. He would do moonsaults off the top rope. He had a pretty good career in WWF. I remember when he first came in, and they did this with Macho Man, which we talked about last time. When Macho Man first came in, they had a whole manager hunt, and he ended up with Miss Elizabeth. So when Bam Bam came in, they did the same thing with all the managers hunting after him, and wanting to get a piece of Bam Bam. And of course, as we know, Mr. Oliver Humperdinck, I love saying that, Oliver Humperdinck, was the one that scored Bam Bam's contract, which was really cool. So he became a pretty well-known babyface in the WWF. We know that he worked a little bit in World Championship Wrestling, and he did a lot of things in ECW. His most famous thing that he had done was, who was it that he backdropped? But he backdropped his opponent.
Was it Taz?
Was it? Yeah, I believe it was Taz. I'm sorry, I couldn't remember. Yeah, but he backdropped him. It was basically a backdrop. It went through the ring, and that was. Yeah. If you ever watched an ECW programming back in the day, that was always a clip they showed you time and time again during the opening of the show, was Bam Bam doing that. As we know, Bam Bam is from Asbury Park, New Jersey. He trained in Larry Sharp's Monster Factory. And he's wrestled in the Continental Wrestling Association with Jerry Lawler. And, of course, he's worked in WCW, WWF, and ECW, so he's worked in all three. Big one. I worked with him, like I said, on the independent circuit, and this is a story I don't tell too many people this story, but it was me and my tag team partner at the time, and that was Tommy Acton. We were Weird Science. Two midgets from a show we worked that night, and I can't remember their names either. I believe Tom Brandy was there, and Tom Brandy, of course, is Salvatore Sincere or the Patriot, however you take it. Boo Bradley, as we know, as Balls Mahoney, he was there, and of course Bam Bam was there, and we were all partying in the hotel. It's on the dual highway here in Hagerstown. It's that hotel right there by the subway, across the street there. I think it's Hampton Inn or Holiday Inn or something, but it sits right there.
I think I know what you mean.
Yeah, we stayed there for the night partying after show, and Bam Bam is like, "You guys ready to party?" He's like. And we're like, yeah. So he brings his suitcase out, pops it open, and I swear to God, or I swear to somebody, anyways, he pulled a bag out this big, I swear, of marijuana. I have never in my life. I was like, man, where'd you go? Did you run across the border to get that shit? And at the time, I admit it, I do smoke a little. I do smoke some marijuana, but at that point, I didn't at all. So I opted out. But as soon as I saw it, I'm like, I gotta go. See ya. But yeah, absolutely, I will never forget the time that I was partying with all those guys, and Bam Bam whipped out that huge bag of marijuana. And Boo, or Balls Mahoney, got so wasted that night that he reached into the side drawer where they keep the Gideon's Bible, and he started quoting it and saying how much bullshit was in there, and he's like, there's so much bullshit in here, I should wipe my ass with this. So he starts ripping pages out of the hotel's copy of the Bible, and goes and wipes his ass with it.
Oh, wow.
Wrestlers, I tell you, they're crazy.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's an awesome story. Bam Bam, I mean, like you said, he was a big guy who worked like a little guy. I mean, you mentioned he did moonsaults. He was one of the first big guys I ever saw do an enziguri. Mm-hmm. He would use, I think his finish used to be a slingshot splash over the top rope. He would stand on the apron and like slingshot himself in over the top rope. I mean, he was amazing. He was just such a great worker for a guy his size. And if we ever put together like a list of the best working big men, he's got to be right in there. I mean, and you compare him to Samoa Joe. He was a hell of a lot bigger than Samoa Joe is, and still worked in that style and was, I mean, just a tremendous worker, and had great runs in all the major companies and worked on the indies for a long time, and main evented WrestleMania 11. Wrestled Lawrence Taylor.
And I could go on and on and on about that travesty.
Yeah,
At that point, the most boring match I'd ever seen would have been the WrestleMania 2 Battle Royal with all the football players. I
yeah,
mean, the fridge was the only one I was aware of that I knew because at that point, Chicago Bears were huge and they had their own little theme song on floating around TV and everything. So I knew who
yeah,
Refrigerator Perry was. But other than that, I had no clue who these football players were. We're not interested at all. I'm just glad Andre won it.
yeah,
But yeah, it's true. It's like that match with Lawrence Taylor was horrible.
yeah.
Um, Bam Bam has the ability to do so much, and he just stood there and took forearm after forearm after forearm from Lawrence Taylor. It seemed like that was his go-to move, was the forearm. Uh, I thought it was, as Gorilla Monsoon would say, a travesty of justice.
Yeah.
It's like when Nakabona beat Big Show, or Floyd Mayweather beat Big Show.
Knocked out Big Show, yeah.
You know, I'm sorry, but it's the Big Show. I do mind a little suspension of disbelief, but not when it comes to hurting the guys I'm supposed to disbelieve.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where you obviously they did the match just for the buy rate, so that people, would tune in thinking, oh, I wonder what's going to happen. Lawrence Taylor is going to wrestle, just like, and to be fair, it wasn't as bad as when WCW brought in Jay Leno, but
It was better. It was better actually than the whole Mongo McMichaels run.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh my, and Mongo actually won titles and everything. Like,
I know
he was a horseman. He was a horseman.
He was horrible.
People bitch about Jeff Jarrett or Paul Roma being horsemen. Fucking Mongo. The fuck. But yeah. So it's just judging it as a match. If you don't look at it like on the sliding scale of celebrity matches, it wasn't a good match. It was one of the worst WrestleMania main events, I think, in terms of match quality. But Bam Bam hung in there, and he probably made Lawrence look as good as anybody could have. And he did his job. But yeah, I mean, hey, the guy got the main event WrestleMania. But yeah, great legend, great run in ECW. Was in the WrestleMania 4 World Title Tournament that you love so much. He lost in the first round, unfortunately, but he was there. So yeah. Before we go, I had an idea for something that I think I want us to try to do from now on, like we do the Legend of the Week every week.
Okay.
I thought it would be fun to recommend old school shows for people who could watch on the WWE Network. For those of you who have the WWE Network, but maybe you're wrestling fans of a more recent age, you don't go back as far as me or Doc goes, and you don't know really where to start, because the WWE Network gives you this awesome library of old shows, and there's so much shit there, and they're adding more stuff all the time. It's hard to know where to start. So I thought maybe once a week, one of us or both of us, if we both have an idea, could suggest some things from the archive on WWE Network that, if you're a subscriber, you can check out and watch. And the first show that I want to recommend is one of my all-time favorite shows, and it's a great nostalgia trip if, like me, you were a big wrestling fan in the early 90s, which isn't always thought of as a great period, both creatively and financially. The business wasn't in great shape. But one of my all-time favorite shows is on the WWE Network now. They just added last month, they just added the Clash of the Champions to the network. And it's Clash of the Champions number 17, which took place on November 19th, 1991. And it's got some fun stuff on it from a nostalgia point of view. It's got Steve Austin during his Stunning Steve phase, defending the TV title against PN News. Remember him?
Come on.
And it's got Sting versus Rick Rude for the U.S. title, and it's not that great of a match, but it's a great showcase of Rick Rude, because they did an angle earlier in the show where Sting was injured by Lex Luger, and then he has to defend the U.S. title, and Rick Rude basically just takes him apart and kicks his ass and wins the title. But the real reason I'm recommending the show is it has my all-time favorite tag team match, my favorite tag team match ever, of any fucking tag team match I've ever seen. It's Dustin Rhodes and Ricky Steamboat, who was his surprise tag team partner because his regular partner, Barry Windham, was injured. Ricky Steamboat, in a surprise return to WCW, teams up with Dustin Rhodes, and they face the team of the Enforcers, Arn Anderson and Larry Zbyszko, for the World Tag titles. And it is fucking awesome. It's my favorite tag team match I've ever seen. So that is my network archive recommendation. If you're looking for an old school wrestling show to watch on the WWE network this week, that's the one I would go for if you haven't seen that, especially just for that one match. It's an amazing match.
If I was to recommend one show, I would have to go all the way back to February 20th, 1989, and visit the Chi-Town Rumble.
Oh yeah,
I did like the Chi-Town Rumble. Let me go over some of the matches that happened there. We had Michael Hayes, who I'm a huge Michael Hayes Freebird fan. I love the Freebirds. He defeated the Russian Assassin, but he had Paul Ellering in his corner. And I'm going to be dropping a lot of big names here. So you had Sting versus Butch Reed with Hiro Matsuda in his corner. You had the Midnight Express, which consisted of Bob Eaton and Stan Lane. Stan Lane, yeah. And Jim Cornette, of course, and they defeated the original, or I shouldn't say who won, but yes, they defeated the original Midnight Express, which consisted of Jack Victory and Randy Rose, and they were Paul E. Dangerously. So Paul E. was back, and of course he was carrying the huge cell phone at the time, so you can recognize him because he still had hair and he's carrying a huge cell phone.
Yeah, I remember that.
And two guys who are making a niche in the WWE right now. I'm about to mention their father, Mr. Mike Rotundo. He faced off against Rick Steiner, and Scott was in his corner. Lex Luger faced Barry Windham with Hiro Masuda in his corner. The Road Warriors, with Paul Ellering, faced off against the Varsity Club. That was with Steve Williams and Kevin Sullivan. Mean old son of a bitch Kevin Sullivan is. And, of course, in the main event that night for the Chi-Town Rumble was Ricky the Dragon Steamboat against Ric Flair. And you cannot go wrong with a match like that.
No. Yeah, that's when Steamboat won the title.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's one of the greatest matches ever. That's a great recommendation. Chi-Town Rumble is an awesome show. And, people forget, like we all remember that Steamboat versus Flair match because it's considered one of the greatest ever. But I think probably at the time, if you were watching the show, Wyndham versus Luger would have been the hottest match because they had been the tag team champions, and then Barry had turned heel on Lex to join the Horsemen not too long before that. So that was like a really hot feud at the time.
And it was for the NWA United States Heavyweight Championship, that match was.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and that was back when both Lex and Barry could fucking go like crazy. In his first couple years, Lex actually wasn't that bad, or at least he wasn't so bad that he couldn't be carried to a good match if he was in there with somebody else. And Barry was just amazing. So, yeah, great show. Great recommendation.
Barry Windham back in the day is like, and he doesn't wrestle anymore, but JBL reminds me of an old Barry Windham, the way he worked in the ring.
Yeah, I agree. Especially
that's the Southern style, so they're all pretty familiar.
yeah. They both would use the lariat as a finish a lot of the time, and but Barry was amazing, and Barry had great matches in the '80s with Flair and with Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson, and whether he was fighting against the Horsemen or fighting with the Horsemen, he was just incredible.
Here's a little bit of information that you might not know about when we're talking about Barry Windham. Here's a little bit of trivia you might not know. Back in the day when Barry Windham teamed up with Mike Rotundo in the WWE, so they were tag team back in the day, so it was Mike Rotundo and Barry Windham, they were introduced to a theme song that never really became theirs. And I'm talking about Real American. When you hear Hulk Hogan come down to Real American, always think to yourself, that song was created for the tag team of Mike Rotundo and Barry Windham, and Hogan, like Hogan does, stole it.
Yeah, because they were the U.S. Express. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that I don't think I knew that until you told me. I think you told me about it a few weeks ago, and I had never heard that story. That it was originally. It sounds exactly like something.
If you listen to the original wrestling album and the very first music album they ever put out, and it's actually commentated by Mean Gene and Jesse Ventura. They do a little commentating between each song. They they admit it right there. Hulk Hogan's theme song is on that CD, and it's not Real American. Real American's also in there, but it's for the tag team. Hulk Hogan's music, and you can hear it at the beginning of, if you ever seen it, and you can look it up on YouTube, the old Hulk Hogan's Rock and Wrestling cartoon show that used to be on back in the 80s. But there was a song that was like dun, 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 and that was Hulk Hogan's theme music at the time.
Huh. Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, leave it to Hogan to steal his theme song, and now it's like the most famous wrestling theme song ever.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's wrap this up, partner.
Yes,
we've been
sir.
talking about wrestling for like an hour and a half, and I don't know what it's like where you are, but I've got a storm going outside my window.
It's not too pretty. It's not too pretty out there. Yeah, I can hear the vehicles rolling by, and it sounds like the pavement's wet.
Yeah. So I'm going to wrap it up just in case I have a power outage. I would hate to cut the show off abruptly. So
It's true, we can't have like something that pops up and says sorry for the technical difficulties, and we're experiencing, what WWE says, but at least you're not paying for this.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like in your house where the power will go out and we'll just do the rematch tomorrow night on Raw. So we'll be back. We'll be back next week, and we'll talk about the results of Payback. We'll talk about the fallout on next week's episode of Raw. It'll be a lot of fun. We'll see which one of us got the most right in our predictions poll. It should be a fun show. So we'll see you next time.
I say next week we don't do Legends. We discuss the Montreal Screwjob.
Okay.
That's legendary.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, let's do that.
I love that idea.
So next week we're talking about the Montreal Screwjob.
I like that. Okay, so yeah, in addition to Payback talk and Raw talk, we'll talk about the Montreal Screwjob. Should be a lot of fun.
Yep.
All right, thanks for joining me as always, Doc. See you next week.
Sir. Take care, guys. Thanks for joining us.
Yep, see you next week, everybody.